done several things. Reynolds will go back after visiting the area where his equestrian statue is, and where the pedestrian statue of Buford is, and he will do two things. One is he will address a letter, the last letter he will ever write, and it will be addressed to General Meade. General Meade is about 15 miles from us at Taneytown, with his headquarters. Also at Taneytown is the 2nd Corps, commanded by General Hancock. And the message that he will send is that the Gettysburg is here on the field, and as an artillerist, it is a good place because of the terrain. The commanding position of Cemetery Hill is the best artillery position in the area. And he would recommend that the Army concentrate here. He will also enter into the memorandum that Gettysburg is an ideal place to fight a battle. It's on the high ground to the north and west of Gettysburg, and if driven from the high ground northwest of Gettysburg, he will barricade the streets of Gettysburg and hold the town of Gettysburg to ensure that Cemetery Hill remains in Union possession. Now, the strange thing is, it's a letter, it's just about like a speech that Winston Churchill will give. As old as I am, you can remember that. Because Germany launched their great offensive on the 10th day of May. But within 1 week, the German army is on the English Channel. And Churchill and the Umbrella Man will resign as the King's first minister that day. Churchill will be called to the thing, and he will say, much like this, he doesn't say barricade the streets and fight them in the streets. He said he barricade the streets of the town and hold the town. He says he will fight them on the beaches. He will fight them in the town. Churchill is evidently remembers, since he's a student of American history, he can remember, but not word for word, the actual gist of what Reynolds is writing to General Meade. General Meade likes that, but he receives the message almost at the same time from General Howard. Meade has no use for General Howard. He remembers what the 11th Corps had done at Chancellorsville. And the message from General Howard, who must have traveled much shorter route to Taneytown, is that the 1st Corps has fled at the first shot. He's referring to the 447th New York, which is not going to do good. And with that, Meade will turn to Hancock and tell him to proceed to Gettysburg, assess the situation, and see if Gettysburg is the place that Reynolds said to fight a battle. And so Hancock will get in an ambulance with the maps, ride the ambulance, and will arrive at Gettysburg, and that will be our last stop today when we're up on Cemetery Hill when Hancock arrives. And Howard is not glad to see him. So Hancock will then, Reynolds will then proceed here with General Longsall Meredith with him. And with him is coming Gibbon's less favorite regiment, the 2nd Wisconsin. We're going to let him take over with the 2nd Wisconsin, but first, we're going to get rid of General Reynolds. Somewhere near that mound of earth, there'll be a monument of wood. There'll be a marker of wood there in 1867, saying that Reynolds was casual. Now, Reynolds is sitting somewhere on his horse in this area. He has turned his head and he's looking toward the 2nd Wisconsin, which is coming up in column. And he will yell, "Forward, men! Forward! Forward, men, for God's sakes! We must stop them now." And as he's turned his head that way, a bullet is going, he's sitting facing, the horse facing that way, and he's turned like this. The bullet will hit him behind the left ear. It will lodge behind the right eye. And he's undoubtedly dead when he hits the ground. As they rush to him, his orderly, Private Bailey, is looking for his wound. He's unbuttoning his cravat, feeling his chest, as he's sure he's shot in the chest. And then he can feel the blood oozing out from behind his ear. So make all the women happy, particularly Susan there. Women are by their nature, and Coral Paula, they're more romantic than men. Because they're going to find something around his neck that they didn't expect. They believe, graduate of West Point, 1840, he's married to the Army. He has they cannot visualize him having any symbol of being interested in women at all. The Army is his wife. And they find a woman's ring around his neck. What does this mean? A woman's ring around his neck. We'll solve it real fast, and then my colleague will take over. They'll find out what it means, because his body is going to be at Nuditz, Pennsylvania on the 4th. They've got him laid out in the parlor. Who comes in? This gal, Mary Catherine Hewitt. And she has his West Point ring. And his sisters are thunderstruck. They never knew that their brother was interested in women. They thought he was in the Army. You'll never say it yourself. It's her ring he has around his neck. It's his ring she shows to her. Since the Army was cheered by the Sisters of Charity, when they marched to Emmitsburg on the third last day of June, she will enter the convent. She will never take final orders. She will disappear, become a school teacher up near Albany, New York, and die up there. So now you can take over. See, I filled in for him. He usually handles the romantic thing.
Yeah, I can.
Definite typecasting.
Yeah, no. One time I was in a conference, and this gentleman asked me, I was talking about George Custer and all these things, and sort of asked about sexual perversions, and I didn't know anything about it, so I turned it over to him, and he knew everything about it. So, anyhow, behind Reynolds are coming up right through here. And by the way, the nickname in the Iron Brigade was the ragged-ass second, because they all didn't care much about uniforms, so a guy like Gibbon would not care very well about that. But up comes a ragged-ass second. Again, they're not loaded with rifles. Doubleday encountered them and told them to basically, go as fast as you can. Staff officer urged them on, and they're going to come into line, and they're going to come up over here, and by all accounts of them, as soon as they're going to crest this ridge behind us, they're going to get hit with a volley. They probably only had about 225 men at that time because 20 of them had been detached as Brigade Guard. They're going to be, as their next stop at the railroad cut, correct? They'll be part of that. Every regiment was down 20 because of that. And they're going to be hitting, and about 75 of them, or a third of them, are knocked down in that first volley. Their orders were to charge. And, you know, with Reynolds urging them on and everything, their orders were to charge. So the 2nd Wisconsin, men are trying to load their rifles. They are going to charge right down into the Confederate lines. What's helping them very quickly, though, unfortunately, right behind them is the 7th Wisconsin, and they're going to come into it, and they're in the same situation. These men are trying to load their rifles and conduct an attack at the same time.
And the muzzle loader is almost impossible to load.
Exactly. And then finally the 19th Indiana comes up, and they're able to unleash a volley into the ranks of the Confederate troops. As I told you before, I was in Alabama and said, you know, everything was going well, and suddenly we met a hard proposition. And they are simply going to be driven back. But these men had orders to attack, regardless of whether you had loaded weapons or not, and they will attack. Now, one thing you probably read in many books, and every now and then it continues to amaze me, that somebody said that John Reynolds, and I know in the movie Gettysburg, which is about the closest thing to gospel we can find on the battle, I understand that he's still killed by a sharpshooter. My view of that is this. Somewhere in either Alabama or Tennessee or close to the border, about 1900, guy needing a stiff drink, a Confederate veteran, started to tell the story of how he was up a tree and kept getting freer drinks, and said about he shot this man in horseback on the first day at Gettysburg, and suddenly it becomes a story, I'm the man who killed John Reynolds. Something along that is completely wrong. He was killed in a volley by the rebels coming. They're really, folks, they're basically about to, not far in those woods, and remember, those woods are park-like. They're very open. I understand that that's one section of forest here that they're not going to clear out, right, Ed? Yeah. They're going to keep that pretty much the way it is. But it was far more open, almost like this, maybe a little bit a few more trees, but essentially it was like this because they pasture animals. Animals kill any kind of low tree and brush. And so when he's shot, he is killed by a volley from the Alabamians, or obviously an Alabama or Tennessean shot him, but he wasn't up a tree and picking off this general. It's just one of those great stories, and you make yourself a hero, and there you are. And probably, I think it ended up in Confederate veteran originally, but there's no basis in fact whatsoever. But I just 5 years ago I saw it in a magazine article where Reynolds is killed by a sharpshooter on July the 1st.
You always got to watch the bullshit artists.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
I want to call attention to two monuments here of some import. The gentleman over there standing on the pedestal did not invent baseball. No. So don't even think that he did. But that's Abner Doubleday. And if you look to your right, you see the upturned cannon over there. It's a headquarters monument. Just past that is a white monument. By far the most important monument on the battlefield.
Cavalry.
8th Illinois Cavalry. Thank you very much.
By the way, I want to mention something.
Was that the retreating monument?
You know, Abner Doubleday, because his message and stuff, Abner Doubleday is going to be replaced. In the Army of the Potomac, Abner Doubleday's only real sin was he was an abolitionist. He was an abolitionist before the war. Oliver Howard is an abolitionist. In the senior leadership of this army, and this is a McClellan army yet, it's a McClellan army. If you're not for abolition 63, you keep your mouth shut. If you're going to command the army, you better be right in emancipation. But Doubleday was not liked by the senior leadership, many of them, because he was pretty much an outspoken abolitionist. So please keep that in mind. Why is he replaced? He doesn't do a bad job here replacing Reynolds. He really doesn't. I mean, he's caught in a bad situation. This is the one place. How long has Lee's army been waiting to outnumber the Federals on a battlefield. And he viewed that here on July the 1st. And Howard, those damn Dutch, those poor fellas, they're caught too. And, you know, but that's what happens as much as anything. There's this undercurrent in the senior leadership, and Doubleday does not fit in.
And Newton will end up the war as a division commander.
Oh, yeah,
He's not a winner. He's an engineer.
Right.
Almost all leadership of the Army of the Potomac by 64, senior leadership are going to be engineers.
Yeah. And Newton, by the way, at that council on the night of July 2nd, he's the only one that said this was not good ground. So that does tell you, apparently his engineering skills have waned a little, you know. But yeah, he's not. It shouldn't have happened to Doubleday, but it was a good reason to get rid of this abolitionist.
Any questions? All right, let's go to the, we're going to, last of the Iron Brigade for a while, because we're going up to the railroad cut. The unfinished railroad grade would begin near the depot in downtown Gettysburg, just off Carlisle. It's been sold to the people buying stocks and bonds in it that will eventually be extended to the Potomac River. That won't happen till after the Civil War. At the time of the Civil War, the cuts and the fills of the unfinished railroad grade will extend as far as Marsh Creek, near where we parked the bus this morning when we went up to the first shot marker. At that time, the east cut will be there. That's the one that will cause the S to hit the fan in 1990. Cost the regional director his job. The middle railroad cut will be here. But remember, the cut is designed by where the bridge springs from the arc. Those mounds of earth are not here at that time. They are added when you build the bridge. The bridge will be built in the late 1890s. West Railroad cut will be about level with us and to the north of us when we were at Buford Monument. Now the Confederates have not reconnoitered the area well. So you can see this railroad cut at various depths exists. Remember, there's no ballast, no rails, no ties. Now, remember the Union original position was the cavalry up where our first stop was after lunch. North of the unfinished railroad grade will be Devon's people. 3rd West Virginia, which we'll point out when we go by it, 6th New York, 9th New York, and 17th Pennsylvania, which will carry us up to the Mummersburg Road at the base of Oak Hill. Now when Cutler arrives, he will deploy 3 of his rifle regiments in the area just north of the railroad cut when we were at the Buford Monument. And there he will position the regiments from left to right, 147th New York, under Major Curtis. Now you do not want your forebears in 147th New York, because they're going to flee. And you won't be able to boast about what they did. But on the right is the 55th Pennsylvania under Colonel Hoffman, goes it the German way, to the double N, and then the 86th New York. They're going to fight very grimly when the Confederates come at them. Now, south of the railroad cut, when we rode the bus down, I pointed out, and I'm sure Marshall pointed out to his bus, the 95th New York. The 95th New York will be, as we go get around 11 o'clock, they're going to be behind that post and rail fence facing toward us. They're no longer facing west. On the other side of them, on their left, are going to be those guys in those tight red-headed breeches. The red-legged devils. You want a free drink, Bob? Go and call them the red-legged devils. For God's sakes, don't refer to them to the 84th New York or they'll punch you in the choppers. They got a red hat, they got white leggings. We could see them now because that bridge is not there for that mound of earth. Now other people are going to be up here later. We're going to turn it over to Jeffrey. When we talk about Rufus Dawes and our friend from Wisconsin's favorite regiment, the Iron Brigade, the 6th Wisconsin, which is going to be a big regiment, because they're going to have 20 men, as Jeffrey said, from the 19th Indiana, 20 men from the 7th Wisconsin, 6th Wisconsin, and 11th Indiana. So they're a stronger regiment, and better yet, they got the brigade band with them. We're going to be playing The Camels Are Coming. More about that later. Now the Confederates are going to advance. And Davis is going to do, and Archer is going to start off like they're going to pounce those guys. So we've already heard that Archer is going to be caught by the Confederates, several hundred of his men captured, and will be a die at a prison camp. Now the Yankees north of the railroad cut, the 86th New York, Colonel Grover will be shot down. 55th Pennsylvania will be driven back, and they'll fall back to Oak Ridge. Because north of the railroad, what we call south of the railroad, Seminary Ridge, is known as Oak Ridge. The high ground we can see in this is Oak Hill. But the 147th New York runs for their life. And that's the regiment Howard is writing about when he says the First Corps flees at the first shot. He's painting the whole Corps with a paintbrush when he's talking about only the 147th New York. The Confederates advance. Now the rightmost man in the 42nd Mississippi is standing with the cut on his right, 300 yards west of us. On his left is going to be the 42nd, is going to be the 2nd Mississippi, and on the far left, with the most distance to go, as they pursue the retreating men of 86th New York, 55th Pennsylvania, and those shirkers in 147th New York are going to pursue them. And suddenly they can see Federals behind that post and rail fence. The fence closest south of the road is a post and rail fence. It's very substantial. It's not that any whip could knock that post and rail fence down. But the type they have then are able to stop a 1,000-pound bull. Because if that 1,000-pound bull gets out on the highway and hurts somebody or impregnates somebody's high-grade cows, the guy that owns them will sue you for your low-grade bull. Market bulling will make a lot of money as representing wrong people. a personal injury lawyer. Didn't know Marshall. You all people all thought he was a different type lawyer. You didn't know he was a hard-nosed personal injury lawyer.
Cow personal injury.
It's a real estate. Cow injury.
All right. Now
Cow injury.
the Confederates see them, and Davis is not experienced. He was his uncle's pride and joy. But his uncle had put him in as he'd been a staff puke where you put two people that ain't very good. Now he's leading troops into battle. He's never commanded battle on the field. And he's going to order his men to do a right wheel. The right wheel is, this gentleman will stand there, and right there, only this line is going to run for a half a mile in length, elbow touching elbow. You're going to be touching his. And what I'm going to do this. And each man on my left is going to step up. And that means the furthest up you are, the further you're going to have to do is the right wheel. I'm the pivot man in the 42nd. Yes. We're all up against it. And now those Yankees are coming. We'll turn it over to Jeffrey Worth, who is going to be Rufus Dawes now. Rufus?
Yes. Okay, Dawes and them are in that swale. South of us, you can see it. That's where they were. They were held back. Doubleday rides up to Dawes and orders them to advance here. And I'll give you the quote. Dawes is the 6th Wisconsin and 100-man brigade guard, so they're probably well over 400 men. Over here in our, probably close to 500. Over here would be the 95th New York and 14th Brooklyn. And as Dawes said, get the quote here, we advanced to the steady double quick. And then he got, as he were moving forward, one of Wadsworth's staff officers rode up to him and shouted, "Go like hell. It looks as though they are driving Cutler." So they come up to it, and they're advancing the field right directly towards us. And this is what a Mississippi officer says. Now, please keep in mind, the 2nd Mississippi, the 55th North Carolina are right along here, and they're looking at him. They're seeing, and they're up here on the ground. They're not in the cut. They're on the ground. And he says, we were feeling that the day, at that point at least, was ours when a cloud of bluecoats, flesh and eager for the fray, confronted us. They reached that fence there on the other side, the south side of the road, and the Confederates would open fire on them. Dawes' horse is killed under him. Of course, he gets up. All the Wisconsin men do is bow their, and I quote, bow their heads to the leaden storm and dash forward. And that was just short of the fence. He got to the fence. Dawes orders them to fire, and they open fire on them. And suddenly, after they fire the initial volley, these rebels disappear. And then one of the men in there thought they'd go on the ground, and he said, "Those cowardly sons of bitches. You don't stand up to a fight, do you?" So they come over, they scale the fences, and as Dawes says, the fire at this point was murderous. He ordered the men to charge. The flank companies never heard, so they're going to come here. They're going to be like in a V formation because only the companies in the center are going to be leading it, and then they would follow in afterwards. The fire was the worst I ever experienced, said a captain. 6th Wisconsin's flag went down 3 times just from the fence to where we're standing. Our captain was killed. Corporal James Kelly, Company B. He was shot in the chest. He went up to Dawes in the middle of this fight. He opens his blouse and shows him the wound, and he said, Kelly says, "Colonel, won't you write to my folks that I died a soldier?" He would die 3 weeks later. At 10 yards, the Mississippians and the North Carolinians fired a final volley. A blast, they said, had been so fatal that it seemed as if half our men had fallen, that meaning the 6th Wisconsin. But there's a couple things. Another soldier claimed that his comrades seemed all unconscious to the terrible situation. They were mad and fought with a desperation seldom witnessed. We get to hand-to-hand combat. At one point, Private John Harlan was killed. His best friend was Levi Tongue, and he rushed at the rebel who had shot his best friend. And the rebel throws his hands up and says, I surrender, I surrender. Tongue looks at him. Oh, he said, don't shoot, don't kill me. Tongue looks at him and he says, oh, hell can't save you now, and pulls the trigger and blasts him right in the chest and kills him. The Waller, the brother, Samuel Waller and Francis Waller, they're the brothers that come to the eye. They're the ones that are going to rush towards the colors. You know, the Troyani print, the fight for the colors of the 2nd Mississippi. Samuel would knock down the color guard, and Francis would wrestle with Corporal William B. Murphy, and they would capture the flag. Altogether, the 6th Wisconsin here, plus the 95th more on the other side, but they're going to capture about 200. The 2nd Mississippi guys are simply trapped. The colonel has to surrender the regiment and the sword and everything, but they're, you know, once they reach here and can shoot down into them, it's over. They have no place to go.
Like fishing, shooting fish in a
right.
barrel.
55th North Carolina, because of the lower nature of the cut, they're going to be able to get out of the fields and they're going to swing out of here. I always wondered, you know, what was it? It must be almost 15 years ago where they, that tourists found a body. I always wondered, there were no buttons. You always figured, was it the 55th North Carolina or was it the 6th Wisconsin? But you'll never know because so many of them came back through here. But I'll tell you something. Sorry on this tangent, but to make a point, I was at a conference a few years ago, and the man who was speaking, he's now a professor at Temple. He's an archaeologist. And he's there, and he said, now, I shouldn't tell you this, folks. And then he proceeds to tell us. Okay? Of course. But the important thing is this, and he used to work here. He said every time we did an archaeological dig on the battlefield, no matter where we dug, we found human bones. Wow. So he said this is not only a battlefield, it's a vast cemetery. And I don't know whoever made the count, but the claim was 1,500 bodies unaccounted for. Now, I don't know who did that, and I don't know how they reached that figure, given the fact of what they would retrieve with the Pickett's men and all that. But that's what he said, so I'm just relaying that to you. Any questions on this? Dawes, by the way, son's vice president, I always forget it. Is it Coolidge or Hoover?
It's under, Dawes is under Coolidge.
Well, didn't Dawes become the Secretary of State?
Curtis is under Hoover.
So Dawes' son becomes Vice President of the United States.
So he was related to the Dawes that rode with Paul.
Yes, direct line is his grandfather, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of transplanted New Englanders ended up in Wisconsin. And now you guys probably know that better than me, but that is the case. Yes, it was his grandfather, William Dawes. Yeah. And Dawes wrote his book's very good. Really very good. Doesn't embellish too much.
We're kind of right on the spot right here where a lot of this.
Oh, this is it. I mean,
this is it.
From that fence to here is where, and the quotes I was giving you, the fire was murderous and all that, color bearers are falling.
And the right wing will be down there. And,
the right wing, yeah, you'll see the right wing markers down here. Right, is that it right there? Yeah.
Okay. The left one should be right up there.
Yeah.
And where did the North Carolina?
Yeah, they swung out about crossing the field to Hightail.
They're connected with
yeah. While the 42nd Mississippi was driven out, and the survivors of the 2nd, most of the men captured were the 2nd Mississippi because they had the unfortunate thing of being in the deepest part of the cut.
All right, we'll not get on the bus initially. Get on the far side of the road. Because we've got to de-off down here, and I'm going to talk now. I'm not going to wait any longer for the stragglers. Now, Roy Stone's brigade takes position. This is around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. On the extreme right is the 143rd Pennsylvania. That is Sergeant Benjamin Crippen on the side of the monument. Atlas, 149 Pennsylvania. Down there, south side of Chambersburg Pike stood when we talked about Buford and Reynolds. 150 Pennsylvania facing due west. They were on our left as we drove south. Now, while the fighting is taking place in the afternoon between the Iron Brigade and Pettigrew's band, the Confederate troops of Junius Daniels Brigade, attacked south, 2 regiments, attacked southward from the Oak Hill. They've not been warned about the railroad cut. The Confederates are showing great lack of sharing information. And they're going to advance, and they're going to get hung up in the railroad cut, just like those men 3 hours before. Robert Rowe advances. The Confederate line, the bogus bucktails are going to collapse and fall back along with the Iron Brigade to the area of Seminary Ridge, where the Iron Brigade is falling back. And the favorite name is Benjamin who lived where a Protestant moved into a Catholic neighborhood. He ran his gang. He was doing like gang that ran from shaking his fist. And he's telling us not to go any closer to the Catholic school. Right. That was a thing of shaking their... How many of the people grew up in mixed neighborhoods where they shake your fist? They did that as early as the Civil War. What's Benjamin Griffin doing? Trailing the flag colors of the 143rd Pennsylvania, shaking his fist at those Confederates who were coming after us. Telling them for God's it's better for not. They're going to repulse one attack, the second one will succeed. And Griffin will die, shaking his fist at the enemy as they're going to overrun his command and drive Stone's brigade, who has been wounded, back to the area of the Seminary Ridge, where they was going. We'll talk about them on our last stop today.
Yeah, only on a flag incident, 149th Monument down there, Pegram's gun and her Ridge were just pounding them. And Stone didn't know what to do. So and there's a booklet about it written after the war, you know, it's been reprinted. So he sends a color guard across the road. He would have been on just north of Buford's Monument, and he told him to stand there and with the flag and draw fire. That's what he did, because the regiment was getting it. We're going to sacrifice you, and he's going to be spared, but he is going to stand there, and Pegram's guns will turn their fire, you know, with the smoke and everything that's happening. They will turn their fire on that flag to spare Stone's men for a while. And by the way, the original bucktails, these guys are bogus. A lot of them were the Iverson, the original bucktails, but the original bucktails just, when they call them bogus, you understand how they, not real. Yeah, that's exactly right. However, I have a feeling, whether they're a bogus bucktail or not, if any of you collect CDVs or anything, you know Iron Brigade and bucktails, they have a bucktail that they could be naked from the top up, but they're going to bring a lot of money for an Iron Brigade, so no matter whether bogus or not. By the way, there was a bucktail museum in northern Pennsylvania. And about a year or so ago, they were going to have a sale. Apparently it's folded, nobody wants it. The stuff in there was actually incredible. They had Harry Gilmore's uniform. Harry Gilmore. How would Harry Gilmore get to Smethport, Pennsylvania? They had Mosby Rangers stuff. But for some reason, I don't know, I guess there's an issue over legality. but the museum itself was founded by Bucktail veterans after the war. Apparently contacted Confederates, said, would you willing to donate stuff to our library, our museum? And they did. I don't know where it stands today, but that was going to be a major Civil War sale. So in the northern part of Pennsylvania, they're really a big deal. They really are up there. So
reenactors like to be.
Oh yeah. And the original group, the original Bucktails, Thomas Kane, who we'll talk about when we get to Cobb's Hill, you know, they came down to Susquehanna on rafts. That's how they would get down, head down towards Harrisburg to be sworn in an original outfit. These guys are different. The officers are from there, but the men weren't, and that's why they're called that.
Any questions? All right, we're going to get aboard the bus. The base of South Mountain. In fact, you can see the Cashtown Gap from here. That's that notch right over there. And as Ewell is moving his troops, he's moving his corps as follows. He is moving south on the Carlisle Road. He'll turn him into Arnstown Road, and he hears a rattle of our guns, here, artillery. Remember, what has A.P. Hill done? Lee's orders are he does not want to bring on a battle till the army is concentrated. What has A.P. Hill done? He has sent 10,000 men to Gettysburg. And 10,000, if you send 10,000 men to Gettysburg and find Yankees that want to fight, you've got a battle. So I'm going to say Hill will make one decision here. You can point to all the other bad decisions made, and his is going to be the worst decision anybody is going to make. Because this is one place Lee should not have fought a battle at. Yeah, the Yankees will be left with every advantage of terrain that he had at Antietam. And the Yankees have more men. So as we look here, you'll arrive here, and it looks southward here. And boy, things don't look good for the Confederates. As you remember, Archer's Brigade has run into disaster. Archer's going to get a free trip to Fort McNair and be held a Union prisoner until he dies in prison camp. They've already beaten up on Davis's brigade. So the Yankees are doing quite well when Ewell arrives. But Ewell arrives on their flank. With Ewell arriving is Rhodes's division. Rhodes is usually outstanding division commander. But there are rumors around that Rhodes and a number of his senior officers have drunk too much bad Pennsylvania Applejack on the 30th day of June. So they're not going to do, the leadership is not going to be very good in Ewell's command, particularly in Rhodes's command. Johnston will not get here at all, because he has to come by way of Shippensburg, guarding the trains, and won't get here till after 10 p.m. on the first day of July. Hugo Anderson early will get here about 3 o'clock, and he arrives here at a place to give the Union the worst kind of pain and suffering. He's going to arrive on the flank of the Union 11th Corps. It's besides being numerically weak, it has a rather poor reputation as fighting men. Now Ewell is going to let them know he's arrived, because he's going to tell Colonel Carter, unlimber 2 batteries of artillery, because coming out of Gettysburg at that time, by way of the Carlisle Road, is General Howard. Howard has arrived on the field. Howard sends his first message to General Meade that the First Corps has fled on the first shot. He's talking about the 147th New York, and Meade and Doubleday for the rest of his life will be very unhappy with our friend General Howard. So Howard is going to tell General Carl Schurz, uneducated, a liberal, the man that carried Wisconsin for the Union and the Republicans in the election of 1860. He had been a war minister in the revolutionary government that the Germans set up in the Revolution of 1848. So they tell Carl Schurz, take 2 divisions. Take Steinberg's division and Barlow's division and move out of Gettysburg by way of the Carlisle Road and the Harrisburg Road. Where's the Carlisle Road? We can see it right from here. And cars, see those cars moving rather rapidly? Not that white car, the ones behind that. See that car going fast? That's the Carlisle Road. That's the road that Schimmelpfennig will go out. Barlow will go out on the Now Barlow's a nice guy. He's a lawyer, just like Marshall Crowley. 28 years old, married well, and he's going to pull a Sickles. He is going to go out and anchor his flank on what will become known as Barlow Knoll. He's going to be just hanging out just the same as Sickles will be on the second day of July, particularly when General Early, Lee's battle man, arrives on the Harrisburg Road. He's sitting on his flank and rear. As we're going to find at Barlow Knoll, it's not going to be where the Yankees are going to want him. So we have, so that when Ewell arrives here, he's going to turn to Rhodes, normally his best division commander, but he's been had too much bad Pennsylvania Applejack. And he's going to tell 2 of his brigade commanders, he's going to tell Edward O'Neill, who will soon find he will earn Lee's wrath, and will soon be transferred out of the Army of the Potomac. He is to take 3 regiments of the Alabama Brigade, 3rd, 6th, and 12th. And they're going to form roughly along the alignment of that road that was not there where we see the car going. And advance with his right on this side of the road, his left down in the low ground where McLean's farm is. The 3 regiments. He's going to tell Alfred Iverson, a Georgian, whose father had been governor of Georgia, I want you to take your 4 North Carolina regiments. Iverson should not be commanding 4 North Carolina regiments. As Confederate law says, the commander, if the men are majority from a state, they're to be in a brigade from that state. Iverson will, as the historian of the brigade will say, unwarned and unled, Iverson's brigade will go forward to destruction. Where are they going to form? They're going to form, which is why we're up here, in the lee of that road. That road ain't there. The Mummersburg Road is there. That's the road going across in front of that white road. That car is coming up the road, and that slopes off down there. In the lee of that road, behind the Forney House, as you can see on your map, is where Iverson is going to form his brigade from left to right. 5th North Carolina on the left. The 20th and 23rd North Carolina center, and you're going to be, thank God, Dick is, I'm in the 12th North Carolina, and I'm way out on right field, and I got a good chance of living. The men in those other 3 regiments have a better chance of dying or being seriously wounded. Now he does not coordinate their attack. The Yankees are not idiots. Doubleday is not an idiot. He's in command, and he's seen Ewell arrive up here. John Cleveland Robinson, who we're going to see at our next stop, the man with the best beard. He's going to be there where that car is parked. You can see a statue on that granite monument. He has the best facial hair growth of any Union officer here. Marshal Krolik's wife would lust for him. Marshal can't grow a beard like John Cleveland Robinson. And he has one brigade with him. Now earlier they had thrown up what we'll talk about later, those breastworks that are to the west of the seminary, out there where our bus are parked. He's going to tell Colonel Baxter, get your Brigadier General Baxter, get your brigade up there and take them position where we can see that stone fence, where there is no road. That white car wouldn't be driving down a road there. There is no road there, but there is that stone wall. And he's going to tell him to go out there, and his men are going to be in position when O'Neill's men come forward, and they're going to get blown out very fast. They're not coordinated with Iverson, so then they will blow Iverson's men out, and we'll see. Since we're going to make, we're going to make Jeff is going to be the guys in the either in the 12th Massachusetts or the 88th Pennsylvania. You're going to kill lots of Yankees, the rebels, and capture, right?
Yes, sir.
When we get up there. So you're going to find out the initial Union attack, the Confederate attack, is going to be a disaster. And you'll, if you believe in ghosts, which I do not, you're going to see that monument out at the edge of that field. You're going to see the black monument just beyond that marker there. That's where Iverson, where Iverson's pits are going to be. And if you believe in ghosts, on certain nights you'll have vapors coming out of the ground of Iverson's men who are going to get massacred there. So that's where you get a good view from what's happening here, and that will be our next stop. And as I say, this is a very good position. And if you cannon one, run over and get your picture of your Whitworth. This is a Whitworth right over there. The Confederates had a breech loading and a muzzle loading Whitworth rifle over there, firing on the Union system up here.
Can I say something briefly?
Yeah.
There's a counter argument made by historians. The argument is that said Henry Heath is to blame for this. He dragged Lee into this battle. Well, once Archer and Davis's are bloodied, Heath pulls back. Okay, he stays back on her ridge. Lee comes onto the battlefield afternoon, more towards 2 o'clock. Up rides Campbell Brown, Ewell's stepson, basically saying to General Lee, we are prepared to attack. The argument is it was not Henry Heath, it was Richard Ewell who dragged Lee into this battle at Gettysburg. You understand what it's saying? Because had Ewell not done this, and Lee countenanced the attack, but he wasn't ready to. Here's Ewell is saying, hey, we can make this attack. I'm ready to make this attack. And once they make their assault on the 1st Corps and the 11th Corps, we got a real battle for sure now. So that is a counter-argument some historians will say, and I just thought you'd want to hear it.
I think it's very good. Thank you, Jeff. Anything else to add? All right, we're going down there now, and we're going to, Jeff is going to star as he's going to show how to deal with two Confederate brigades, one after another. He's facing that way. And we're going to beat up on O'Neill. Lee, after this battle, has had problems with O'Neill from Chancellorsville. He's had problems here with him, and he'll give him to the Army of Tennessee. Lee's kind of heartless that way. So now we've got a deal with Iverson's brigade. Iverson's men, we're not going to see them. He and O'Neill have not coordinated. The first you're going to see Iverson's men with their floppy hats start coming over that bridge. That bridge is about 100. On that bridge, the ground slopes down to the woods, supporting property. On the right of the Confederates, I'm a Confederate now, is going to be the 5th North Carolina. Excuse me, on their left. On their right, that's what I told my friend that he wants to be with them. The 12th North Carolina, because they're going to be aiming at that point of wood. The ones you don't want to be with is the 30th and the 23rd. They're going to be right here. So what we're going to do, I'm Baxter. I'm going to tell my men we repulsed O'Neill. Now what we're going to do, we've got this new threat coming toward us. And I want you men to lie down behind this stone wall here. Lie down just like you would advance. You have your front rank right behind the stone wall. Right behind them, laying down, is the second rank, then the file closers and the colors. You're going to case your colors, and when I order, you're going to charge them. And we're going to see what Colonel Iverson is going to say, General Iverson is going to say about it. Because the Sergeant Major, who writes the regimental history, says unwarned and unled. That means that Iverson ain't going forward with him. He's a Georgian leading 4 North Carolina regiments. That's contrary to Confederate law. He's if it's the South North Carolina regiment, 4 of them in a regiment, they're supposed to be led. And what we're going to do is wait till the North Carolinians, the 30th and 23rd, are right there, where we can see that monument. And we're going to give the order, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to fire 2 crashing volleys into them at point-blank range, and then charge. Now we're going to call up Jeff and see what's going to happen. This will become Iverson's pits. Iverson is going to suffer rightful casualties. And again, the person that writes the regimental history of them says, long will the widows and orphans of North Carolina, from the Low Countries to the Piedmont, rue the name of Alfred Iverson. So let's have General Iverson show up. General?
Right here, Ed.
Okay.
Just to make the line here, and you showed the monuments. What happened when O'Neill attacked the 88th Brigade and 83rd? They were the ones who were going to shoot up O'Neill's men, and then they're going to wheel back like everybody else, and they're going to face west. And they're going to lie down, because Ed said, behind this stone wall.
There's no road here.
No. Colors men are down there. You know, they've been reformed in this wall here that occurs from basically noon to 2 o'clock. And there are actually, as Iverson's men will come over the crest, is that this is the Forney farm at the time of the battle. One of the men in the federal ranks wrote, the North Carolinians marched, and I quote, in a gallant style as evenly as if on parade. You know, the problem with it was, one, Iverson was not here. What's the worst thing you can do when you send a brigade or a regiment into battle or an attack? You don't send, the worst thing you can do is don't send out skirmishers to see who's up there, to find out what's there, and so they're coming on basically blindly. So when colors men will initially open fire down here around the woods here, they're going to react a little bit to it. Once they reach, as Ed said, the counts are pretty well clear, about 50 yards or so, and you can look at that, it may be a little bit more. Here are the words of the historian of the 88th Pennsylvania. At the command, a sheet of flame and smoke burst forth from the wall, with the simultaneous crash of the rifles, flaring full in the faces of the advancing troops, the ground being quickly covered with their killed and wounded as the balls hissed and cut through their exposed line. North Carolinian wrote, the one volley really striking down hundreds. In fact, afterwards, I think it was the very next day, I believe this is right, Henry Berkeley, artillerist, who will write a diary, he comes here, and he walks along here, and he finds 79 men lying in a line. 3 of them have fallen forward dead, and 76 had fallen backwards, and all their feet were in a roughly a straight line. That's how powerful and how deadly this volley was fired from these ranks. And very quickly, as he said, it was not a charge, and these Federals, as soon as they fire this volley, they see the Confederates collapsing. You know, some of the counts are, and as Ed said, the 12th is pretty well spared. They're over here, but the other 3 aren't. And there are even accounts that, you know, some of them got off shots, some didn't. You know, they're just simply slaughtered where they stand. And then, as one of them said, it was not a charge at all, only a run forward to drive Iverson's men who were willing enough to surrender. And they are going to see it. And then, as Ed said, and I will give you the exact quote as they said, unwarned, unled as the brigade went forward Iverson's deserted band to its doom. Deep and long must the desolate homes and orphan children of North Carolina rue the rashness of that hour. If you've seen the new biography of Iverson, the title of that biography is That Rashness of That Hour. So, and of course, as he will. The other problem, too, is Joshua Daniels, which we talked about. Daniels was supposed to support Iverson, but Daniels was never really informed of that, and he didn't know what to do. So he's going to go, and as Ed noted, 2 regiments are going to go towards Chambersburg Pike, 3 are going to wheel to the left to deal with those woods down here, and the Federals in it. Bob Crick has said that, in his opinion, and nobody knows more about the Army arguably than Bob Crick and his command there, that Robert Rhodes is the finest division commander the Army of Northern Virginia had. Well, as Ed pointed out, it may have been Applejack or something, but he wasn't the finest brigade commander here. And it doesn't get any better in July 2nd and 3rd. But here he sent, what's a cardinal sin? You don't send your brigades in piecemeal. And he sends them in piecemeal. And as I said, Joshua Daniels, Junius Daniels, who is excellent, he doesn't know what to do. And Iverson starts out, well, the brigade starts out, here Daniel behind him, because he would have been to the right, and he's going to move down here. So Iverson's men have no support in either flank, and they're just doomed.
And you've got one brigade that ain't doing anything.
Right.
And they'll break the Pembroke line eventually when
right.
Paul comes up and that's Ramseur.
Right, and that's Ramseur. And Paul, of course, if you heard that, Gabriel Paul is going to come up. By the way, the troops call him Apostle Paul. He will come up and he's going to be hitting in the right side of his head, and he's going to be blinded for the rest of his life. We're going to take out both his eyes. And he lives a long time, yes. And they're going to be here when the collapse comes. And then they argue over who collapsed first, either the damn Dutch or these boys. But Ramseur's the one that's going to quit. Ramseur's top drawer. You know, he's going to end up as division commander because he made his real fame recently at Chancellorsville on May the 3rd.
Any questions? All right, now don't come out here. I made the mistake. Jerry Russell's group, Bruin Gray, and with Park Silver's connivance, with Bobby Crick and others. They come out here at night. And they're laying out here. The ranger shows up, looking for the atmospheric conditions. So we bring these vapors coming out of the ground and turning into figures. The ranger is here with his flasher, flashing them out there, and they're all hugging there. I don't know what would have happened. I think Bobby and a few of them would have gotten that. Bobby, one of the instigators to bring him out here that night. Any other questions? All right, we'll go to Barlow Stone. What? Wendy, all right, I'm going to start, those people down there, I'm going to start talking now, because we're running against time. Now, when Carl Schurz comes out here, he wants to form his men along a straight line, passing through the area where you can see that large government building, which is now still a government building, but not the Alms House, and extending east and west. But Barlow notices this commanding ground up here, and he's going to do just like Dan Sickles, without clearing it with Carl Schurz. He's going to advance his division up here. Now he has in his division 2 brigades, Adalbert Ames, a West Pointer, and future son-in-law of Benjamin Franklin Butler, and the last Civil War general to die. He does not die until April 1933 for the Trivia Pursuit people. And he brings up von Gilsa's brigade. Von Gilsa's brigades are all good German boys. And if you speak English, you would not be at home in his brigade. So von Gilsa is going to move up here. Von Gilsa is going to have with him 153rd Pennsylvania. This is a 9-month regiment. In 2 weeks, they'll be home to mom and the kids. So naturally, they are not going to be very daring at that time. He's going to advance the 41st New York, the 56th New York, the 60th New York, 8th New York, down into the edge of the woods. Into those woods, you disappear into Rock Creek. You're going to put Bayard Wilkinson's battery here. Wilkie has 4 guns, all of them Napoleons, good guns. Wilkie's father is a newspaper man with the New York Herald, and he's going to work a real heat up for General Meade, because he's going to hold Meade responsible for his son being up here. So you're going to support them with the 17th Connecticut. So the 17th Connecticut will go in here, and this is a monument. It's a flagstaff, but it's a monument. It's a monument to the Colonel of the 17th Connecticut. And we appreciate it. Lieutenant Colonel Farr was going to get his head torn off. That makes a horrible mess when you tear a man's head off. So he's undoubtedly one of those unknown dead buried in the National Cemetery. So he's moved up here. Schurz is not happy about it, but he can't pull him off because the Confederates are arriving. Now initially who arrives here, out in the area here between us and the Carlisle Road. You see the traffic moving along the Carlisle Road out in front of us. Will be George Dole's 4 Georgia regiments. But coming in now is General Early. Early will have with him a battalion of artillery, and they will take position out in this area here. There's Early arriving there. We can see Harry Hayes. You can see Gordon. You can see Avery. Forget about Smith. Smith is going to disappear. And artillery is going to open fire. And that's the first time that that Barlow knows he's in big trouble. Because his flank is here. And the Confederates of Harry Hayes and Avery are going to cross Rock Creek out in the woods there and come into the rear. Now, Hayes's brigade bear the names of the Louisiana Tigers. When Robert O. Wheat was killed, his battalion is broken up. The Irish Wharf Rats. And this brigade says bullshit about the Texans being the best fighters in the Confederate Army. They are. They can also drink more whiskey than any Texans. I want to give you the full how they view themselves, and they view themselves as able to make out with the women better than any, particularly those Texans. So they are one of these brigades that I'm sure that my friend Jeffrey says are a lot better than the Stonewall Brigade, have a lot better combat record than the Stonewall Brigade. And that's one of them they would have to worry about, is Hayes. The other is Avery's brigade. And they're going to cross, they're going to ford Rock Creek. They couldn't today. So they're going to sweep into the flank and rear. And that is what Barlow is not going to like, to get men into his flank and rear, because they're going to sever his retreat into Gettysburg. And now Wilkinson is going to be mortally wounded. Wilkinson is 21 years old. He commands these 4 guns. And a shell is going off. And it's all but going to tear his lower right leg off. The only thing that is holding his leg are these powerful muscles behind your knee. So he will take out his knife and he will amputate his knee himself without the benefit of a doctor. He'll die. But his father is a newspaper man with the New York Herald, and he is not going to be friendly to General Meade, as he's going to hold Meade, not Barlow, responsible for putting his son out here. And he'll write some articles Meade does not like. So Meade is going to make a big blunder. He's going to take his staff to take care of it. So what they're going to do, and it's going to be right after the North Anna, they're going to have a drumhead court-martial. Meade is not going to be placed on trial in absentia. And they're going to put Meade on trial in absentia. And they're going to find him guilty of sending troops out here. So they'll sentence the father to be drummed out of the army with a plaque around his neck, calling him a libeler of the press. So that's going to turn the press even more against General Meade out of here. Well, in the fighting, Barlow will get himself wounded. We'll pick back to him later. And the Confederates will turn their flank, sweeping around the flank there. Gordon hitting him head on, attacking him in the flank over here. Goes Hayes sweeping around their flank, and this position becomes untenable. So the 11th Corps is collapsing. And when they collapse from right to left. From here, and eventually they'll collapse with Krasnowski over there with the 157th New York. And soon the 11th Corps is heading that way as fast as they can go. So with the collapse of the 11th Corps, that is not good for Baxter and Paul up there where we were on Oak Ridge. Because if they stay up there, they're going to be bye-bye. They're going to have the Confederates in the rear, and the Union line is collapsing. Well, Barlow, I used to think it was BS, but I've convinced by a lawyer from Cleveland who did a wonderful article on it. It is undoubtedly true that Barlow and Gordon will meet each other. Barlow and Gordon will visit Barlow as Barlow is lying there badly wounded. Now, Barlow's wife is down in the Frederick area. She is being a good Samaritan. She will end up dying. Barlow will not die. She will die of germs. More people die of germs. 2 will die from germs. Every person that dies of trauma in the Civil War. And Barlow will be a widower and she will not be a widow. Barlow will live a long time. So that's and Barlow and Gordon will arrange for him to get word through the lines by flag of truce to his wife that he has been badly wounded and is a prisoner of the enemy. So this is his position here, and I think it's a rather interesting one, and we'll get just perspective on it.
Well, really, Ed, I don't have much to say. You talked about, I didn't hear what you basically said. I know it was good, but honestly, I haven't heard most of it. So with other, but I don't. You talked about Fowler and being decapitated. Yeah, I will tell you one thing, and Marshall will appreciate this. I'll just throw this in. Guy that owned Early's headquarters about 20 years ago called a guide up. And Gary Cross, I don't know if you know Gary, he's one of the best guides that are here. He came to visit, and he said, Gary, let's go down the woods. I walk my dog down there. He said, can you explain to me why, when I take my dogs down there, I see figures of men darting between trees? Well, you have the one ghost story, but I didn't say I believed it, but I just want to tell you, this was incredible, because I pulled Gary aside. What?
It's only when his dog is with him.
No, well, I don't know. Maybe they chased the ghosts out. I don't know what it is, but anyhow. No, Ed said it was, these guys are crack troops, at least in the 2nd Corps, because some of the other ones aren't so hot, I don't think. Tomorrow we get to see the real good men in the Army of Northern Virginia, don't we, Ed? 1st Corps, yes, sir. 1st Corps. Well, he worked for the federal government, so I don't know. No, actually, he worked at the Smithsonian. And that's, that's Gary told me. So anyhow, no, I don't know any more.
Any questions?
One of the great stories out here is the Wilkerson father, Sam Wilkerson, the journalist, is notified that his son has been badly wounded and has been taken back to the Alms house, which was down here. And Sam Wilkerson goes over there and sits by his son as the son is laying dying. He will die the next morning. And while he's sitting there watching his son die, he writes his description of the battle for the Herald and sends it off. And, it's sort of a poignant scene that he's sitting there watching his son die in the Alms house.
By the way, that's Adams County Paupers Cemetery right down here.
Remember,
it was here at the battle.
Wilkinson will blame me for this, not Barlow, not and they will, the staff will put him on trial.
This off.
No, he has a division commander in the second.
Put him on a mule.
Yeah, so yeah, you saw. Well, no, he doesn't really capture because
That's not a good way to do that. The press,
But there's a famous picture of Hancock, and then he goes into the second war where he really makes more of a reputation. Well, he's under Hancock too.
Why is there a statue?
In 64.
Good
They said even
Now,
during the
you
overland
hardly
campaign,
know that
a surgeon attended
was
him daily, and he was still pulling